The amphitheater of Celestial University buzzed with anticipation as students from dozens of worlds settled into their seats. Xena adjusted her iridescent purple skin in the dim lighting, her silver eyes scanning the diverse crowd of beings that had gathered for Professor Quinn's renowned xenobiology seminar. As a third-year student from Valteria, she had always excelled in her studies, but nothing had prepared her for the cultural shock of attending the galaxy's most prestigious institution. Her delicate fingers traced the edge of her digital notepad as she observed the fascinating array of species around her. Crystalline beings from the ice world sat next to furry mammals from forest planets, while aquatic creatures floated in specialized mobility suits. But it was the small group of humans near the front that captured her attention most completely. Xena had heard whispers about these newcomers to the galactic community. Earth had only established contact 3 cycles ago, yet these pink-skinned bipeds had somehow secured admission to Celestial University through what many considered to be sheer audacity rather than academic merit. Their planet was barely past the industrial age compared to the advanced civilizations that typically produce students here. "Welcome, aspiring xenobiologists," Professor Quinn's melodious voice filled the hall as the elderly Harmonite took the stage. Her translucent body shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that conveyed her pleasure at seeing the full attendance. Today, we delve into the fascinating realm of reproductive biology across species. We shall examine how evolution has shaped the intimate behaviors of sentient beings throughout the galaxy. Xena leaned forward, her academic curiosity piqued. This was precisely the kind of cutting-edge research that had drawn her to xenobiology in the first place. As Professor Quinn began her presentation, holographic displays filled the air above the students, showing the complex mating rituals of various species. Most evolved species have developed sophisticated reproductive cycles, the professor explained, her patterns shifting to indicate scholarly focus. The Valterians, for instance, experience their bonding season once every 3 years, during which their skin takes on its most vibrant hues and they become receptive to partnership. Xena's own skin darkened slightly with embarrassment as several students glanced her way. She was grateful that her current purple shade indicated she was nowhere near her bonding time. The crystalline xerons reproduce through harmonic resonance during solar alignments, while the Aquarians sync their reproductive cycles with their planet's tidal patterns. Each species has evolved these mechanisms to ensure optimal timing for offspring survival and resource allocation. The presentation continued with dozens of examples, each more fascinating than the last. Xena took meticulous notes, her scientific mind cataloging the intricate relationships between environment, evolution, and reproduction. But then Professor Quinn's patterns shifted to something resembling bewilderment. "However, students, we come to a most unusual case study. The humans of Earth present us with a biological anomaly that challenges our understanding of reproductive evolution." A three-dimensional human figure materialized in the center of the amphitheater, slowly rotating to display anatomical details. Xena found herself studying the creature's form with scientific detachment, noting the species' relatively simple external features compared to the elegant complexity of her own people. "Human males," Professor Quinn continued, her bioluminescence flickering with what Xena recognized as academic excitement, possess a reproductive system that remains active throughout their adult lives. Unlike virtually every other sentient species we have studied, they have no specific mating season, no cyclical dormancy, and no environmental triggers that regulate their fertility. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the amphitheater. Xena's silver eyes widened as she struggled to process this information. Constant fertility? It seemed not just unusual, but almost primitive. "But Professor," called out a student from the crystalline section, "how do they regulate population growth? How do they focus on other aspects of development and civilization?" Professor Quinn's patterns brightened with approval at the question. "Excellent inquiry. Human males have evolved psychological and social mechanisms to channel this constant reproductive drive. Their species has developed complex courtship rituals, emotional bonding practices, and social structures that serve to regulate behavior rather than relying on biological cycles." Xena's mind raced as she tried to comprehend the implications. She stole another glance at the human students, seeing them now in an entirely different light. That confident posture, that alert attentiveness, that underlying energy she had noticed, was it all connected to this constant biological imperative? This unique reproductive strategy, Professor Quinn continued, may actually explain humanity's rapid technological advancement and their remarkably quick integration into galactic society. The energy that other species reserve for specific reproductive periods is channeled into continuous innovation, exploration, and social development. As the lecture concluded, Xena gathered her materials with trembling hands. Her worldview had been fundamentally challenged. Everything she thought she understood about the relationship between biology and civilization had been turned upside down by these strange beings from Earth. Lost in thought, she was barely aware of her surroundings as she exited the amphitheater. The corridors of Celestial University were always busy between classes, but today the crowd seemed overwhelming. She needed time to process what she had learned, to reconcile her scientific understanding with these new revelations about human biology. "Excuse me," a warm voice said behind her. "You're from the xenobiology seminar, right?" Xena turned to find herself face to face with one of the human males from the lecture. Up close, he was taller than she had expected, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold an intensity she had never encountered in any other species. His skin had a warm, peachy tone that seemed to glow with health and vitality. "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand in what she recognized as a human greeting gesture. "I couldn't help but notice how intently you were taking notes during the professor's discussion about human reproduction. I was wondering if you had any questions about the material." Xena's skin involuntarily shifted to a deeper purple as she felt an unexpected flutter of nervousness. Yes, I'm Xena." The lecture was quite illuminating. "I had no idea that human biology was so different." Marcus smiled, and Xena found herself studying the way his facial muscles moved to create the expression. It was far more complex and nuanced than she had realized from her distant observations. Different is one way to put it. We get that reaction a lot here at the university. Most species find our biology either fascinating or disturbing. "Fascinating," Xena said quickly, then immediately regretted how eager she sounded. "From a purely scientific perspective, of course. The evolutionary implications are extraordinary." "Of course," Marcus agreed, though she detected something playful in his tone. "Well, if you ever want to discuss those evolutionary implications further, I'd be happy to provide a more detailed perspective. Maybe over coffee sometime. I know a place that serves beverages compatible with Valterian physiology." Xena's skin shifted through several shades of purple as she processed his invitation. Part of her mind screamed that this was exactly the kind of situation she should avoid, getting personally involved with a subject of academic study. But another part, a part that seemed to be growing stronger by the moment, was intensely curious about this human male and his unique biology. "I would like that," she heard herself saying. "For research purposes." Marcus's smile widened. "For research purposes," he agreed. "How about tomorrow evening? I'll send you the details through the university messaging system." As he walked away, Xena stood frozen in the corridor, her mind spinning with questions and her skin cycling through colors she couldn't quite control. She had always prided herself on her logical, scientific approach to life, but something about this human had awakened a curiosity that went far beyond academic interest. Tomorrow evening couldn't come soon enough. The aquatic research facility at Celestial University hummed with the gentle sound of flowing water and sophisticated filtration systems working around the clock. Naya pressed her webbed hand against the cool glass of the massive biodome, watching the bioluminescent coral from her homeworld of Aquatica pulse with soft blue and green lights in the artificial twilight. Her emerald skin rippled with the subtle patterns that indicated deep concentration, a trait common among her people when they were absorbed in their work. It was well past midnight, but Naya preferred the solitude of the late hours for her research. The facility was usually empty at this time, allowing her to work without the curious stares and whispered conversations that seemed to follow her wherever she went. Being one of only 3 Aquarians at the university made her something of a novelty, and the constant attention made her gill slits flutter with anxiety. She adjusted the salinity levels in Tank 7, where specimens of Earth's coral were attempting to bond with aquarian polyps in a groundbreaking symbiosis experiment. The project was her thesis work, and if successful, it could revolutionize marine restoration techniques across multiple worlds. The delicate balance of pH, temperature, and mineral content required constant monitoring, which was why she found herself here in the depths of night once again. The sound of footsteps on the metal walkway above made her freeze. No one was supposed to be here at this hour. Naya's natural camouflage instincts kicked in, and her skin shifted to match the blue-green hues of the tank lighting, making her nearly invisible against the backdrop of the facility. "I know someone's down there," a male voice called out, tinged with amusement rather than concern. The biometric sensors picked up movement, and the tank monitoring systems show someone's been adjusting parameters. Naya's skin flushed with embarrassment, returning to its normal emerald shade as she realized her camouflage was useless against the facility's advanced detection systems. She looked up to see a human male leaning over the walkway railing, his dark hair slightly disheveled and his clothes suggesting he had also been working late. "I'm sorry," she called up, her voice carrying the slight melodic quality that all Aquarians possessed. "I didn't realize anyone else was here. I can leave if you need to use the facility." The human descended the spiral staircase with easy grace, and as he came closer, Naya could see he was younger than she had initially thought, probably close to her own age. His eyes were a warm brown, and when he smiled, she noticed how the expression transformed his entire face. "No need to apologize," he said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture she had observed but never experienced firsthand. "I'm Jake. I'm working on my marine biology dissertation, and I tend to keep odd hours too. The nocturnal marine life doesn't exactly follow a convenient schedule." Naya hesitantly reached out to shake his hand, surprised by the warmth and firmness of his grip. Her people rarely engaged in physical contact with other species, but something about Jake's demeanor put her at ease. "I'm Naya. I'm studying interspecies coral symbiosis. The Aquarian Earth Coral Project." Jake's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "I've been following your research reports in the university database. The preliminary results are incredible. You're essentially creating hybrid ecosystems that could thrive in environments where neither species could survive alone." Naya's skin brightened with pleasure at his enthusiasm. Most students, even those in marine biology, found her work too specialized to understand or appreciate. "You've read my reports?" "Every single one," Jake confirmed, moving closer to examine the tanks. "Your methodology for gradual environmental integration is brilliant. I've been working on something similar with deep-sea organisms from different worlds, but I haven't had nearly the success you've achieved." For the next hour, they discussed their respective research projects, sharing insights and techniques with the easy familiarity of kindred spirits. Naya found herself relaxing in a way she rarely experienced around other species. Jake didn't stare at her gill slits or ask invasive questions about aquarian physiology. Instead, he treated her as an equal colleague, valuing her expertise and perspective. "Would you like to see something special?" Naya asked impulsively, surprising herself with her boldness. "There's a section of the biodome that most people never visit." Jake nodded eagerly, and Naya led him to a sealed chamber at the far end of the facility. She input her access code, and the heavy door slid open to reveal a smaller dome filled with water from floor to ceiling. The space was designed to replicate the deep ocean environments of Aquatica, complete with the high pressure and unique mineral composition of her homeworld seas. "This is where I go when I'm homesick," Naya admitted, her voice softer now. "The university installed it for the Aquarian students, but I'm usually the only one who uses it." Jake stared in wonder at the underwater landscape visible through the dome's transparent walls. Creatures that looked like living jewels swam gracefully through forests of crystalline seaweed, while the water itself seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "It's beautiful," he breathed. "Like another world entirely." "It is another world," Naya said with a smile. Would you like to experience it?" "The water is safe for humans, and there are breathing apparatus designed for air-breathing species." Jake's eyes widened with excitement and perhaps a touch of nervousness. Are you sure? I wouldn't want to intrude on your private space. I wouldn't have offered if I minded, Naya assured him, already moving toward the equipment lockers. Besides, sharing the wonders of Aquatica with someone who can truly appreciate them, that would make me happy. 20 minutes later, Jake was fitted with a sophisticated breathing apparatus that would allow him to survive underwater for several hours. His movements were awkward at first as they entered the dome through the diving platform, but Naya guided him with gentle touches and encouraging words. The moment they were fully submerged, Jake's expression transformed into one of pure wonder. The underwater environment was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The pressure felt different, almost comforting, and the way light filtered through the water created an ethereal, dreamlike atmosphere. Naya moved through the water with fluid grace, her body perfectly adapted to the aquatic environment. Her skin took on an even more vibrant hue underwater, and Jake could see the subtle gill movements that allowed her to breathe. She was absolutely magnificent, and he found himself captivated by her alien beauty. This is how my people live, Naya explained, her voice carrying clearly through the water thanks to the specialized communication system built into Jake's breathing gear. We don't just visit the ocean like humans do. We are part of it. She guided him through a grove of singing kelp, the plant-like organisms producing haunting melodies that resonated through the water. Jake reached out tentatively to touch one of the fronds, and it responded by changing color and adjusting its song to harmonize with his presence. They're responding to your bioelectric field, Naya explained, swimming closer to him. Each person creates a unique signature, so the kelp creates a unique song for every individual. As they moved deeper into the dome, Naya showed Jake creatures and plants that defied earthly categories. There were creatures that looked like living flowers but moved with purposeful intelligence, and others that seemed to be made of liquid light itself. Jake's scientific mind was overwhelmed by the diversity and complexity of this alien ecosystem. How do you study all of this? He asked in amazement. There's so much complexity, so many interactions happening simultaneously. The same way you study Earth's oceans, I imagine, Naya replied, performing a graceful spin in the water that made her look like a dancer. One relationship at a time, one mystery at a time. But it helps to be part of the system you're studying rather than just an observer. They found themselves floating near the top of the dome, where the artificial sunlight created patterns of dancing light on their faces. Jake looked at Naya, seeing her in her natural element, and felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just scientific fascination anymore. This was something deeper, more personal. Naya, he said softly, thank you for sharing this with me. I've never experienced anything like it. Thank you for appreciating it, she replied, her skin shifting to softer, warmer tones. Most people see aquarian culture as primitive because we haven't developed the same kind of technology as land-based species. They don't understand that we've simply evolved different solutions to the same problems. Jake reached out impulsively, his hand gently touching her face. Through the breathing apparatus, he could see her eyes widen with surprise, but she didn't pull away. There's nothing primitive about this, he said firmly. This is one of the most sophisticated ecosystems I've ever encountered. And you're extraordinary. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibilities and the strange magic of two very different worlds touching. Naya had never felt this kind of connection with anyone, let alone someone from another species. But here, in the waters of her homeland, with this human who looked at her world with wonder rather than judgment, everything felt possible. Jake, she whispered, moving closer to him in the water. I think I'm falling in love with you. His answer came not in words but in action, as he pulled her closer and their lips met in their first kiss. The breathing apparatus made it clumsy and awkward, but neither of them cared. They were floating in an alien ocean, two beings from different worlds, sharing a moment that transcended species and biology. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily, their hearts racing with emotions they had never expected to feel. The water around them seemed to glow brighter, as if the ecosystem itself was responding to their connection. I love you too, Jake whispered, his voice full of wonder. I didn't even know it was possible, but I love you too. As they floated together in the artificial ocean, surrounded by the beauty of Naya's homeworld, they both knew that their lives had changed forever. Love, it seemed, truly could bloom in the most unexpected places, even in the depths of an alien sea. The observation deck of Celestial University's psychology wing offered a perfect view of the recreational courtyards below, where students from dozens of worlds gathered to socialize between classes. Tessa adjusted her position on the curved bench, her silver skin reflecting the soft afternoon light as she made detailed notes in her research journal. To any casual observer, she appeared to be studying the architectural design of the gardens, but her true focus was much more specific. For the past 6 weeks, she had been conducting an unauthorized behavioral study of the human students, particularly their emotional expression patterns and social bonding rituals. As a Lunarian, Tessa's people were naturally analytical, their silver skin shifting through subtle metallic hues to reflect their emotional states in controlled, predictable ways. But humans were chaotic, their emotions playing across their faces in rapid, complex sequences that both fascinated and frustrated her. Her particular subject of study was currently engaged in what humans called ultimate frisbee, in the courtyard below. Devon was his name, she had learned from careful eavesdropping, and he was a third-year athletic sciences student from Earth. His physical capabilities were impressive by any standard, but what truly captured Tessa's attention was the way his emotional expressions changed moment by moment during the game. When he caught the disc, his face lit up with what she had catalogued as triumph mixed with satisfaction. When he missed a catch, disappointment flashed across his features for exactly 1.3 seconds before being replaced by determination. Most fascinating of all was how his expressions changed when interacting with different teammates, shifting from competitive focus to genuine warmth to playful teasing, sometimes within the span of a single exchange. Tessa's skin flickered between silver and pale gold as she struggled with her own emotional response to her observations. What had started as purely academic interest had evolved into something far more personal. She found herself timing her breaks to coincide with Devon's training sessions, memorizing his schedule, and even dreaming about those expressive brown eyes and the way his smile seemed to transform his entire face. The ethical implications troubled her deeply. Lunarians prided themselves on emotional control and intellectual honesty. What she was doing violated both principles. She was conducting research without consent, and worse, she was developing feelings for her subject that compromised her objectivity entirely. Interesting research methodology, a voice said behind her, causing Tessa's skin to flush bright silver with shock. Though I have to say, most scientists prefer to actually interact with their subjects rather than just observe them from a distance. Tessa spun around to find Devon climbing the last few steps to the observation deck, his athletic gear damp with perspiration and his expression amused rather than angry. Her skin cycled rapidly through several metallic hues as panic, embarrassment, and attraction warred within her. "I don't know what you mean," she managed to say, though her voice carried the slight harmonic distortion that indicated emotional distress in Lunarians. "I was just studying the architectural flow patterns of the courtyard design." Devon moved closer, settling onto the bench beside her with easy confidence. Up close, she could see the details she had only glimpsed from a distance, the way his dark hair curled slightly at the edges when damp, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the warmth in his eyes that seemed to invite trust. "Architectural flow patterns," he repeated with a grin. "Is that what we're calling it? Because from down there, it looked like you were taking notes every time I moved. My teammates have been teasing me about my silver stalker for weeks now." Tessa's skin shifted to a deep pewter color, the Lunarian equivalent of mortification. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I was conducting a behavioral study on human emotional expression patterns, and you happened to be a convenient subject. It was purely academic, I assure you." "Academic," Devon mused, his expression becoming more serious. "So you've been watching me for 6 weeks purely for science?" "Yes," Tessa said quickly, then hesitated as she caught something in his tone. "Well, mostly. Initially. The methodology may have become somewhat compromised over time." Devon's eyebrows rose with interest. Compromised how? Tessa looked down at her hands, her skin cycling through nervous patterns of silver and gold. Everything about this conversation violated her people's cultural norms. Lunarians did not discuss personal feelings openly, especially not with members of other species. Emotional connections were supposed to develop through careful, rational evaluation over extended periods of time. I find myself experiencing what I believe humans would call attraction, she admitted quietly. Which has made objective observation increasingly difficult. The silence that followed felt eternal to Tessa. She could hear the sounds of the game continuing in the courtyard below, the distant hum of university life carrying on around them, but between her and Devon, the world seemed to have stopped. Can I see your notes? Devon asked finally. Tessa's head snapped up in surprise. My notes? Your behavioral observations about me. I'm curious what conclusions you've drawn. With trembling hands, Tessa opened her research journal and handed it to him. The pages were filled with detailed observations written in precise Lunarian script, along with sketches of his facial expressions and charts tracking the frequency and duration of different emotional displays. Devon studied the pages with growing amazement. The level of detail was extraordinary. She had noted not just his obvious emotions, but subtle micro-expressions, the way his posture changed with his mood, even patterns in his breathing during different activities. This is incredible, he said softly. You've been watching me more closely than I watch myself. Look at this analysis of my interaction patterns with different team members. You've identified behavioral variations I wasn't even conscious of. Is that acceptable? Tessa asked nervously. I realize that observing someone without their knowledge raises ethical concerns. Devon looked up from the journal, his expression thoughtful. On Earth, this would definitely be considered stalking. But I can see that wasn't your intention. This is genuine scientific observation, even if your motives got complicated along the way. He closed the journal and handed it back to her, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. Tessa's skin immediately brightened to warm gold at the contact. Your skin just changed color, Devon observed with fascination. What does that mean? Gold indicates pleasure in physical contact, Tessa admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. We don't usually discuss such things openly. Lunarian emotional expression is meant to be controlled, regulated. But it's beautiful, Devon said, reaching out to gently touch her arm. Her skin immediately responded, flowing from silver to gold where his fingers made contact. It's like watching emotions become visible. On Earth, we have to guess what people are feeling most of the time. You don't have to guess, Tessa said, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. Human facial expressions are remarkably complex and communicative. You reveal far more than you realize. For instance, right now your micro-expressions indicate interest, curiosity, and... She paused, studying his face intently, attraction. Devon laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You don't need scientific training to see that last one. I've been trying to figure out how to approach you for weeks. Every time I looked up at this deck and saw you watching, I wanted to come up here, but I wasn't sure if you were interested in me or just studying me like a lab specimen. Both, Tessa admitted with a small smile. Though the personal interest has definitely overtaken the scientific curiosity. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing this unexpected turn in their relationship. The late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the courtyard, and most of the other students had moved on to dinner or evening activities. Tessa, Devon said carefully, I have to ask. In your observations, did you reach any conclusions about human compatibility with other species? Specifically Lunarians? Tessa's skin shifted through a complex pattern of silver and gold as she considered the question. My research suggests that humans form emotional attachments through shared experiences and compatible personality traits rather than biological similarity. Lunarians typically require longer assessment periods and more rational evaluation of partnership potential. What does that mean for us? Devon asked. It means, Tessa said, turning to face him fully, that by human standards, we're probably already emotionally compatible. By Lunarian standards, I should conduct approximately 6 more months of careful evaluation before considering any form of romantic attachment. Devon grinned. Which approach do you want to follow? Tessa looked at him, this human male who had somehow captured her attention so completely that she had abandoned her people's traditional emotional restraint. His face was open and honest, his eyes full of warmth and possibility. Every logical part of her mind insisted that she should proceed cautiously, follow Lunarian protocols, maintain appropriate boundaries. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. The sensation was unlike anything in her experience. Human lips were softer and warmer than she had expected, and the way Devon responded, gentle but enthusiastic, sent waves of golden light cascading across her skin. When they finally separated, she was glowing like a beacon. I think, she said breathlessly, I prefer the human approach to relationship development. Devon laughed, pulling her closer. Good, because I was hoping you'd say that. Though I have to admit, being studied so thoroughly by someone as brilliant as you is probably the most flattering thing that's ever happened to me. As the sun set over Celestial University, casting the observation deck in warm twilight, Tessa realized that her unauthorized research project had yielded the most important discovery of her academic career. Love, it seemed, defied all logical analysis and cultural programming. Sometimes the most profound truths could only be found by abandoning scientific objectivity and embracing the beautiful chaos of genuine emotion. Her skin settled into a steady, warm gold as Devon held her close, and for the first time in her life, Tessa was perfectly content to stop analyzing and simply feel. Epilogue. Years later, Tessa would publish her groundbreaking research on interspecies emotional compatibility, revolutionizing the field of xenopsychology. But she would always remember that her most important finding wasn't recorded in any journal or presented at any conference. Love, she had learned, was the one force in the universe that made perfect sense while defying all logical explanation. And sometimes, the best way to understand another being wasn't through careful observation from a distance, but through the vulnerable act of opening your heart and letting them see who you really were underneath all the protective barriers. In the end, the observer had become the observed, the researcher had become the subject, and two hearts from different worlds had found their way to each other across the vast expanse of space and cultural difference. The end.